You travel a lot, but you do not travel a lot for pleasure. Seems like you're always going places for work. When I first met you, the way you traveled really confused me.
What do you mean?
Well, I didn't travel much for work at all back then. I mean, I had had the occasional trip to go and do a church thing or, to go do a learning thing, like a 3-day seminar or something. I didn't travel much for my job, but you were traveling all the time for your job. You'd tell me where you were going. You're like, I'm going to Houston. I'd be like, oh, dude, there's this thing in Houston and there's this other thing in Houston. How long are you going to be there? And you just look at me like I was an idiot. And your answer would always be, you're not understanding. I'm going to be there for the least amount of time possible. And I don't think it's because you hate Houston or whatever cities you were going to. I have my theory, I guess, as to why you're in and out so quick. But maybe instead of saying my theory, I'll just ask you, why do you always get in and out of places so dang fast when you pay the money to be there anyway?
First of all, I'm not even self-aware that I do that. I guess it's because I want to be home with the family.
Okay.
So I just go to the place, do the thing. Even better if I can tack on 2 or 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can think of videos where I've gone to a place for a thing and I just shot 2 other videos that were within 50 miles.
Yeah.
So I try to do that kind of thing a lot. Family is the thing. I like to sleep in my own bed and I like to be around my kids. And yeah, that's why I do that.
And that would have been my guess, more or less. But you are ruthlessly efficient with your travel. You do not leave yourself a lot of wiggle room in between. Again, I don't know if you know this about yourself, but when I'm like, oh, well, tell me more. What are you going to, oh, you're in New York. Cool. You're making a video. Well, what all are you going to do? And you will reel off your itinerary and you're like, from 7:57 a.m. until 10:45, I'll be filming this interview. Then I will be going to this thing. Then I'll have 10 minutes to quick film a horse that's standing on one leg in this museum that I've always wanted to see. And then I will quickly be going to this thing. Then I'm going to do a second video from 2 in the afternoon to 4:30. And then my flight is at 4:31.
Yeah. Recently I did that I went to Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from Idaho to LA and yeah, I did exactly that.
It's ruthless. You're on flights a lot, but I don't know. Do you have fun? I was going to say it doesn't seem like you're having any fun, but maybe you should get to speak to that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you telling me about this because I didn't realize this about myself. But
there's no criticism.
Well, it's different. So I'm not traveling for pleasure. I'm traveling for work. But at the same time, it may be a thing I really wanted to see. And then there's targets of opportunity along the way. Because recently I did a video about metal forming, this new thing called roboforming. I had a 2-hour block and I heard about this thing and I called him. I was like, can I come do the thing? Or maybe the guy emailed me or I forget. But it's like, hey, I'm going to LA. Let me put up the spreadsheet. Because I have a spreadsheet. People will contact stuff, Smarter Every Day, say, hey, would you like to come see our thing? And I organize it by city. And if I'm going to the city, I will look at the spreadsheet and be like, oh, I have this much time. There's a thing there. I can go do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to maximize the efficiency. What do you do when you travel?
Well, when it's for work, I do the same thing. I try to maximize for efficiency, but not as hard as you. So I did a series of videos in St. Augustine that I filmed about a year ago, as we're talking right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I left myself a lot of wiggle room to look at plants and fish and to sit for super long meals on a rooftop in St. Augustine and watch the people go by and I guess think thoughts. I like the extra time. I want to feel the place a little bit. I want to, this about me, that I feel like I sort of have a place in my hip pocket as soon as I have a mental map of it.
Mm-hmm.
The street goes here. That cathedral is right there.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's that cool park right across the way. It's important to me. For whatever reason, it's kind of how I organize a big part of my invisible life. The life of the mind for me is very place-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
It's very geography.
It's
and
very
map
fish-oriented as well. I know this about you.
Yeah, that's true. Fish, tennis, church. Those are all things that I care about when I travel. And so if I didn't line the right things up and I get to a town, I'm like, I'm going to go interview these people who are doing a religious thing that's nothing like what I do or what I'm into, but I just want to know. So I'm going to their house of faith or whatever. And then I see a really cool one while I'm driving in that I didn't catch in my research. I feel huge regret. Oh, I could be getting that as well. So sometimes real creepy, like I'll just go into churches where I didn't call them in advance and just kind of mill around and seem friendly. And I just hope somebody's going to come up and be like, So what, you just looking at the church? I'm like, yeah, I like looking at churches. I mean, sometimes I make videos about churches. I like to learn about other people's churches. And my fantasy is that someday somebody's going to be like, well, let's just do it right now.
Yeah.
What do you want to know? Do you have a microphone? I'd be like, oh, I couldn't possibly. I insist. Okay.
Just pull the flute out of your sleeve like an Anchorman.
Yeah, exactly
I
like
couldn't
that.
possibly. I'm not prepared at all. Whoosh. Have a jazz flute ready to go.
Yeah, I go real hard on my travel as well. And I leave a lot of room in between, but it never seems to help me because what I do requires advanced planning and all of that. But you're just a ruthless advanced planner. You get in so much. What I have noticed, though, is that I think I travel for pleasure more than you. I am more likely to put the family in the vehicle and take a week off and drive somewhere that makes no sense, whereas you're more likely to put the family in the vehicle and do 36 hours of super intense adventuring, dad ventures, I believe you call them, or work travel. Those seem to be the two things. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like you haven't had the time for the pure pleasure travel stuff that maybe some other folks prioritize. I don't know. I just kind of wonder, like, do you feel like you're missing out on stuff? Are there places that you want to go see that you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
Yeah, there are. And one of those places forever was Italy. And you convinced me to do that. I don't know if convinced is the right word. You weren't like, you should do this.
Standing there, man.
But I mean, it was our 20th anniversary, and Tara and I decided we were going to go somewhere for us, for the marriage.
Did you do anything for work?
Yeah. I mean, I recorded some stuff. I took a camera because I was like, if I don't take a camera and I see the most amazing thing ever and I don't record it, I will always regret that.
Yeah. And you took pictures for me. You took some orders along the way.
Just a couple.
Hey, dude, I'm working on a thing. Where are you at right now? There should be a sculpture of a guy with wings, and he's by a sign. Could you take it at like 6 p.m. from this angle, please? Thank you. That was my contribution to your trip. Just work orders the whole way.
It was a unique thing because we, like you said, we don't do that. We don't travel for pleasure. We usually have a thing we're doing.
All I've got is road trip to see us. I've got Iceland for an anniversary trip with your wife, last significant anniversary ago. And then your most recent significant anniversary, you went to Italy. I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
It's wild that those are the only big ones that I can really think of.
I think that's it. We did I think it was like 4 days in Costa Rica, a language school.
Yeah, but that was practical. You were doing something. You were gaining a skill.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I think that's it. I think it's because, I don't know if this sounds stupid to even say it. I'm nervous even talking about this. Feels guilty. Like I feel guilty for taking time off and doing, I don't know if time off is the thing, but like, I'm going to go do this thing. I don't know. That feels strange.
Does travel make you feel refreshed when you do it for fun?
Yeah.
So why don't you do it more?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good idea.
Did your Italy trip make you feel refreshed when you were done?
I was tired because we walked a lot, but yeah, I'd say mentally refreshed because it exposed us. So one of my favorite things to do in my entire life is be in a place with my wife. I mean, like, it's like me and Tara versus the thing, and we don't speak the language. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
What about you?
Yeah, same thing. I would use a little different illustration. You went with combat. I'm going to go with Christmas. But for us, it's like unwrapping the present. I can only unwrap the present of each place once. And so before I go, I try to read a whole bunch of history and literature about a place, familiarize myself with art and poetry and who these people are and where do they come from and how do they think of themselves and what is the oldest historical through line that I can trace, that I understand the story of from a given place I'm visiting back to things I know, like on the history family tree. I like to know that stuff so I can have the antenna out for connections. And then my favorite thing to do is get dropped in a city for the first part of the trip and figure it out. No idea. Just solve it.
Well, one thing I know about you is that when we first started talking, you were talking about ancient Rome and you were talking about the history of thought in the West, I think is the way you said it. Is that right?
Yeah, I like that.
And so you were talking about those things and you had told me about going to Rome and why it was important to you. And you had told me about wanting to go back and look at certain things. Like I can remember you made a video where Paul was in prison.
Yeah.
And
Good
you were
memory.
explaining all that to me. You're telling me why this specific spot is interesting. And you said, well, the Catholic Church says this happened there. We don't really know, but then this is tradition says, and you were telling me all those things, and I thought it was fascinating. And I don't know, when it came time to, hey, we're going to go to a place, hearing you, pun intended, romanticize all of this for so long, I was like, man, I've got to see that.
Yeah, you just tapped into the word that I have in mind and that I kind of wanted to pick your brain about, knowing that you went on this trip. For me, the romantic joy of going to a place with Camilla is, I just like seeing her in a different culture. I like seeing her quite literally in a different light. Every town, every great city is lit different. It feels different. And it's almost like the little imperceptible details of people you know real well are a little bit different as they adapt to that over the course of a couple of days in terms of climate and culture and everything. I mean, I've never seen Camilla against the backdrop of Prague, and I really want to take her there. I've had the opportunity to go to Prague for work things on my own. I don't want to unwrap the present without her, because then if we go, it's asymmetrical. Now I'm the knower, and I'm introducing her to a thing as though I have ownership of it. I don't have any ownership of Prague because I go once and I still haven't gone. I want whatever ownership I have, I want to be shared completely equally with her. And I want to earn that ownership, not by going and ticking the boxes of the tourist destinations you're supposed to see. I want to earn it by getting lost and taking risks and getting into weird corners of things and going to the places that aren't even really that interesting and that don't make the tourist guides, but that have some obscure connection to some goofy little thing that only I care about from forever ago. I think she thrives on seeing me get excited about that stuff. And I thrive on her savoring the beauty of things and the carefree spirit that she has when we travel. She's a pretty carefree lady, but there's a lot of burdens to raising 3 kids and keeping track of all the dumb stuff I'm doing. She's so light in the shoulders when I take her places. There's an elegance and a youthfulness and a lightness that traveling together and unwrapping the present together brings out of her. And to me, that is the pinnacle of romance for us. New, fresh stuff that is rooted in old things we haven't encountered yet. We love that. What? What? I don't get it. What? What
I was thinking about romance and the pinnacle of romance and
What?
I'm sorry. The day-to-day marriage stuff. I saw something online and I was like, I'm going to try this. And so the other day, there was a guy who's like, hey, honey, come in here. There's an exposed stud in here. Talking about, like.
Yes, I know. I can see where I get it.
And so Tara comes around the corner. She's like, what are you doing? So maybe I need to work on the romance.
That's seriously your follow-up story to this heartfelt crap about
no, you're
unwrapping the mysteries of the old world together.
No.
Connecting with our ancient roots.
Well,
Check it out, babe. I'm naked.
Hey, y'all. It's like the streak.
Yeah.
Ray Stevens.
Yes.
No, there's something about breaking free of the day-to-day, like the everyday monotony of feeling like ships in the night passing.
Well said.
We did something with this trip to Italy that was very rare. We said, how many days should we go? And so we called in all the favors, all the, not babysitting favors, our parents are awesome and they love their grandchildren. But we just said, hey, we're going to do this. Will you help us? And they're like, yeah, of course. We went for 14 days, which was nuts.
Impressive.
I think it was 14.
Did that feel
maybe it was 10? Maybe
weird
it was 10.
to you? Did that make you feel nervous and apprehensive because you're used to traveling for 11 hours when you take flights to go places and then coming straight back?
1,000%. Yeah.
The open-endedness was weird?
Yeah. The open-endedness was weird. The financial investment was, it was just something we had prepared for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so it was, that was nerve-wracking. With you, I know you make a decision. Like, this is a big part of your finances for your life, is making these investments on the experiential with your family.
Yes.
This is valuable to you, and you choose to live in a smaller house so you can do more of these types of things. And I don't know that I like the way that sounded, but you know what I'm trying to say.
But it's true. No,
you live modestly.
We prioritize this. I have strategic reasons parenting wise. Also, it keeps my brain from getting stale. I want to see the things I talk about from the past. I want to feel the things I talk about.
So you've told me all about Rome. You can only imagine the amount of prep I did going in. So I listened to Rubicon by Tom Holland.
Great book.
You put me onto Persian Fire. So I feel like I had this whole experience of learning about Persia, how that morphs into Greek power, and then Greek, kind of transforms the Romans, the rise of the Romans. And so I'm trying to understand all this. And so I go to Rome. We ended our trip in Rome. And I was like, man, I want to see where Julius Caesar was killed. Like, I want to see that. I mean, that was a big, YouTube, Brutus. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Do you feel you found it?
Do I understand correctly that it is a cat pound? Like, it's a place for abandoned cats now? Do I understand that?
Yeah, it's a pretty quirky spot tucked in the middle of all of this
stuff. The Theater
of
Pompei, is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's where stray cats are now.
Yes, I mean, there are stray cats everywhere, but okay, I have a question for you about the forum. But before I go there, to me, it sounds like the first objective of your Italy trip was romance. Go somewhere beautiful and romantic and different and savor being with somebody you love. Fair statement?
Absolutely. That was the point. And it could have been anywhere on the planet. That was what we wanted to do. We wanted to go somewhere where we were uncomfortable and we found comfort in each other. And then we also tried to navigate something that we didn't know how to do together. That was the point.
So if you could have gone anywhere, why was Italy a good fit for drawing those things out?
Because we didn't speak the language, and I can navigate in Spanish. I don't.
Oh, yeah, you can.
I wouldn't say I speak Spanish, but I can.
You're doing really well.
I can get by.
Yeah.
Germany, we've done that. Tara's mother grew up speaking German, and her grandmother did too.
You're fairly handy on the basics of German as well.
There's not much there. Thank you for the compliment, but I told you about the time I called the young man handicapped on the train.
Dude, just take the compliment and move on.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So, but Italy, it's just different. We just wanted to see what the culture was. Plus, we like Italian food as we understood it to be from the American perspective.
It sounds like maybe you learned lessons about
maybe.
Okay, so you plan a very unusual trip. I do not know you to take these kind of trips. Clearly, you put a ton of thought into it. I mean, Tara was asking questions about Italy a year in advance of this trip. Maybe? Was it that far?
Yeah. Yeah. Selling her on the idea of Italy was hard because we had thought about other places, but when we shifted to Italy, it was a hard time in our lives. We were trying to, just logistically, we've had a lot going on. And so the idea of breaking free from the day-to-day and doing this was difficult for both of us. Yeah, it was hard. But once she decided, she's like, we're in. Once she made that decision, we got the Bible, which is the Rick Steves travel book for Italy.
Yeah.
And then, do you know about Rick Steves?
I do.
He's amazing. And so once we got that, it was on like Donkey Kong, man. We're like, we're going to figure this out. It was going to be great. And it was awesome.
Where I want to end up here is I mean, just know this question is coming. I want your opinion on what somebody should look for if they want to do the romantic trip of a lifetime.
Okay.
I'm very interested in what you learned about breaking free from all of the normal stuff and going and doing something that you love with someone you love. But also, I really like Italy, and I want to pick your brain about that. Did you go to Rome at the beginning of your trip or at the end?
We ended in Rome. We started in Venice, and then if I'm looking at the boot, with the toe facing to the left, we started at the top right of the boot.
Okay.
Like as you pull it up on your leg, that's where Venice is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we crossed the top of the boot, and then we went to the other side, I think.
Pisa, Milan?
Yeah. No, we didn't go to Milan. We did briefly go to Pisa, like for 2 hours.
Okay.
We drove across Tuscany, and then we went to...
So Florence?
Is Florence in Tuscany?
Yes-ish.
So
Northern...
This is what I would say.
The Tuscany, Umbria, Lazio is north to south from Florence down to Rome, I think.
See, I recognize all those words. I would say the purpose of the trip was familiarization, not mastery. That's a phrase we said recently. We took the kids to Washington, D.C. they're like, hey, let's talk about our government trip.
Mm-hmm.
And Tara said, hey, the point here is familiarization, not mastery. We did that. And so I don't really have a good vibe for everything in Italy.
You don't have the mental map yet.
I don't.
Okay.
Not of the whole nation. In fact, we didn't even get to the southern coast, I don't think. So
I've never been to the southern coast.
we started in Venice, which I loved. And then we went over to Florence. That's right. So we went over to Florence. And then I don't know where we went from there. I do know I drove across Tuscany.
Did you go to Sienna?
Yes.
You did.
Yes. That's the
Oh.
walled city.
It's
Awesome.
the coolest town.
We spent about.
is that top 10 for you? Coolest towns you've ever been to?
Yes. Yeah, no doubt.
Decisively.
So
Cool.
they
Me too.
have this thing in Siena. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the authority. They have this thing called Paolo.
That sounds right. This is the horse thing.
Dude. So being from Alabama, we have Alabama versus Auburn, which I think is a very significant rivalry. Maybe Ohio State, Michigan is up there as well.
Your in-state rivalry affects relationships and how people talk with each other
Yeah.
in this state.
It does.
It pushes right to the limit your southern hospitality and charm.
So Siena is a walled city,
Mm-hmm.
and each section of the city has its own team, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You have like this horse that you root for, and they have a horse race in the center of the city. They bring in all this sand, and it's not a square. It's like a weird dodecagon shape. It's weird. They have this horse race around the center of the city for like 4 minutes, or maybe it's less.
And that's it. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. But like I think they have 2 of them a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Were you there for one?
No, I wish. God, that would be awesome.
I've never seen anything like that.
But we chose teams while we were there.
Oh, who do you root for?
The goose, the one with there's a flag and it has a goose on it, and I used to know the name of it.
I hate the goose one. I'm with Team Wolf. I like the wolf one.
Really? I think Tara was going for the shell one. But anyway,
I don't know if there's a wolf one. I just was gonna.
think there
Whatever
is.
you said, I was gonna hate your team.
Yeah.
That's just what it was.
well, that's
your
how
team
it
could
is.
have been like, there's one with a drawing of a guy. It looks just like you, and I still would have hated it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
They all have these teams that they root for, and it's just awesome. It's just so, and they care, and it matters. And they said in Siena, you're born, and then Paolo, and then you die. That's how they say it. So, like, that's really all that matters. There's not life, there's Paolo.
Did you see the Quantum of Solace, the James Bond movie?
No.
It's not good. It's
Okay.
maybe the second Daniel Craig James Bond movie,
Okay.
but it opens during, if it's called this Paolo,
Yeah.
I don't remember the name. I'm going off what you said, but it opens with that going on in the background,
Dude.
and then there's a spy versus spy combat running across terracotta roofs and shooting guns. The famous ending of that chase sequence is in a church bell tower that's under construction,
Mm-hmm.
and like the lines are taking them up and down, and they're doing like this weightless shoot at each other as one goes up and one goes down kind of thing. And ultimately Bond gets wrapped up around the waist in one, and he lets himself roll down like an unfurling scroll,
Mhm.
and then freezes like 3 feet before he lands at the bottom, and bang, shoots the other spy
Yeah,
or
because
whatever.
obviously as a
That's the
spy, you
opener.
train for that sort of thing.
Yeah, naturally. It's perfectly normative.
Now,
And-
in the what do you call big churches in Italy? They have a name.
Duomo?
Okay, in the Duomo in Siena, it was a big deal, I was told. They were uncovering the floor for the first time in a really, really long time.
What were they looking for?
Well, there were mosaics. They had restored some of the mosaics. The mosaics on the floor in Siena were some of the most intricate designs out of tile and stone in all of Italy. It was a big deal. They're like, hey, you got here at the right time because you can go to the Duomo and you can see the floor. I'm like, okay, whatever. That sounds great. Okay, we'll go see it. We went. Dude, I'm not Catholic, and so I don't get into some of the... It feels like sometimes people are praying to statues and stuff, or like lighting candles and stuff. I don't do all that.
I mean, that's not a terrible characterization. The Protestants have more of a belief that people die and then they are present with the Lord, and not exactly accessible when somebody's dead. So if you run into just a random American Christian, that'll tend to be how they think about dead Christians. We'll be reunited later. So for example, my kid brother is a Christian. He is dead. I don't theologically believe myself to have any kind of access to him through a mediary or anything like that. I mean, it still hasn't stopped me a couple times in moments of grief from being like, hey, God, I don't know if you pass along messages or whatever, but if the Catholics are right on that one, like, could you just say hey to my brother, whatever. I think time works probably different there. But
Yeah.
just miss him today. I don't know. Just miss
Yeah.
him. Miss my kid brother. Don't have another one. So if you don't relay messages, it's cool because of how you're like the divine sustainer of all of existence and everything. And I'm sure your plan and reasoning for not doing like message relays is a super good one. So that's fine.
Did you ask to like pass along a noogie or something like that?
No, but like a couple jokes that I thought were pretty funny and that were maybe right on the edge for God to hear.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
He probably knew what you were thinking
My understanding
anyway.
is that the all-knowing creator and sustainer of all things is pretty aware of all the jokes. So
You should try to pass on a noogie.
I just figured I couldn't offend him. I'll try. I don't know. I mean, I think if you're Catholic, you're allowed to do that. So at any rate, the Catholics and the Orthodox have more of an understanding of like everybody being alive at the same time, sort of something that transcends time a little bit more. And so the role of the saints is very different, whereas a Protestant would be like, I really respect all of these people from the history of the Bible and the church. Like, that was a really honorable person. The Catholics and Orthodox have more of a structure and a criteria for that. And in Orthodoxy, the Eastern version of the church associated with Greece and modern day Turkey and really all of Eastern Europe, the idea is that that person can be represented, drawn as an icon, and somehow that is a point of communion with that person. I'm not Orthodox, so I'm not saying it right. It's a mystery. Catholics don't do the icons the same way, but representations of saints, statues, and things like that. I mean, all of these different groups, they say the same creeds. Like, I believe in God the Father, stuff that you probably say at your church. And these are ancient words that are the boundaries of Christian faith. But one of the real differences between these groups, and it can be very disorienting when you travel in Italy if you haven't been around this much, is their understanding of our relationship with the dead and what the timeline looks like on that. And so for the Catholics, the dead are a little bit closer. And for the Orthodox, the dead are a lot closer. And for the Protestants, it's more of a wait a little while and we'll be back together kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the art, it just hits different. It feels different. And I assume that's what you were referencing when you were talking about not being a Catholic and the stuff that you were seeing there.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for protecting me from myself there.
That's not even dang it. Sorry.
No, absolutely. So the spiritual connection with the rooms and the art in the room maybe doesn't hit as hard for me. However, some of the things on the floor in Sienna, the mosaics, really stirred my soul.
What was different about them?
It was just unapologetically gruesome. I know that sounds crazy, but
it doesn't. Keep going.
So like in the Bible, there's this Messiah that's been born, this king, right? And he's over here in this little town, Bethlehem or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's this dude. He's like, hey, so there's another king,
Herod the Great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where's he at? Tell me, wise men, where's he at? Okay, cool, no problem. And then there's this order to kill all the innocents. Kill all these little kids. If there's a boy under this age, what was it, 2, 3?
Yeah, a couple years of age in this town.
Yeah, go kill him. You know, you're reading the Christmas story. That's a few lines. No. In Sienna, we're going to make a mosaic of all these soldiers marching on this town, grabbing these babies, holding them up by their foot and stabbing them with a sword, and just like blood going everywhere and the mom screaming. And then I thought to myself, oh yeah, that was just a few lines in the Bible, but if that order was executed, there was a soldier that had to do it.
Yeah.
And there was a mother that felt the pain. And then there was, I got it that, Joseph took Jesus and Mary and fled to Egypt. Understand?
And a generational hole for that town.
Yeah. And so it was, I don't know, it just, it brought the humanity to it in a way that I had never considered. And so I was like, whoa, okay. Huh. Yeah, they didn't have YouTube videos of that event, did they? But this is a pretty good representation. Granted, all of the people in the art, they were lily white. They were European looking. They weren't of Middle Eastern descent, which
everywhere Christianity's gone, people depict the characters to look like themselves. We've got Native American churches. I mean, we live in a very Native American part of the Mountain West, and there's a ton of churches: Episcopal, Lutheran, Evangelical, Baptist, and the portrayals of all of these characters look Native in their art. Why the heck wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the central themes of Christianity is that God took on flesh, came to be with people, to be understood by people, because I think it's kind of hard to understand someone who's infinite But God's like, let me make this make a little more sense. Like, there you go. And so the idea of things being incarnational in Christianity really lends itself to people seeing themselves and their physical attributes and their environment in the stories of the Bible. I published a couple teeny tiny little shorts, no big deal, from an Easter procession that I went to in Costa Rica last year when we were studying Spanish down there. I took my kids to a Good Friday procession. So it's a parade that does the Easter story, the story of, the Good Friday story, the story of Jesus' conviction under Pontius Pilate, then all the abuse he takes as he walks through the Catholic stations of the cross. We don't have that in Protestantism, but most of them are in the Bible. It was powerful, man. We walked along with all of that. It affected my kids deeply. But one of my favorite things about it was that the Roman soldiers, their helmets, what goes on top of a Roman soldier helmet?
It's like the red comb.
Yeah, the red comb, but it's not. For them, it's like these super long, exotic bird of paradise feathers.
Oh, that's cool.
It looks almost kind of like Mayan or Aztec or something.
That's cool.
Why'd they do that? Well, I don't know, because it's super incarnational, and everybody everywhere is going to make the people in these stories look like them. East Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah, they were all lily white, but it's because it was in Sienna, so it makes sense to me.
It was neat. I liked it. Seeing the old art was really interesting. I really liked that. The one thing from the whole trip that was, we had a couple of things we wanted to do. For me, the thing was, bucket list item was Pompei.
Did you make it?
We did.
Cool.
I don't know that we should talk about that. I mean, it's like a whole thing. Like we could talk just on Pompei.
Let me just ask you this question then.
Okay.
How'd it make you feel?
It made me think about the whole Bible differently.
Really?
Yes. Because I saw the graffiti on the walls.
For the third chair, not everybody knows what the deal is with Pompei. The very quick version is in the 70s AD, 79
Yep.
AD, is that right? August, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Mount Vesuvius erupted, which is a big volcano right next to Naples. That's the big famous city there.
It's also a Sorrento-ish area, right?
Yeah, and it more or less buried two towns. I can never say it right.
Herculaneum?
That sounded good. And Pompei. And Pompei, Pliny the Elder was there, shuttling people back and forth out of the bay to try to save people. And so there's a very vivid description, maybe written by Pliny the Younger. Well, Pliny, they might have both been there. And so it captured the imagination of everybody forever. And all the way up into the 1700s, everybody's like, something from the era of the Bible is still just sitting there underneath some dirt somewhere right around here. And I think in the 1700s, they figured out where it was, and they've been excavating since. They're not done. It's a whole city that's just frozen in time from the first century AD. That's just insane.
Yeah.
That could exist.
I'll just give you a snapshot. So I told Tara, I was like, this is the thing. This is the one thing I would like to do. She's like, absolutely. So she plans this beautiful itinerary. She's really gotten good at this, where she'll say, okay, we're going to do this. And, when we went to Iceland for our 15th anniversary, she's like, we're going to go to this place for this amount of time. And then our next waypoint is here. And then she plans in randomness for me.
Good.
She's like, structure. And then there's your randomness. You do whatever you want. We can sit, we can sit on a beach, or we can go to a bookstore, or whatever it is. That's what we did the whole trip. But in Pompei, that was the only thing I asked for. It was amazing. But you asked how it made me feel.
Yeah.
When we started, we walked into where the port would have been.
Okay.
And the person that was with us said, okay, this is the, this is the brothel. You're going to walk in the brothel.
Were you seriously looking for a tamer way to say that than brothel?
Yeah.
Because I think that's as easy as
yeah.
This is where the women of the night
assemble. I was trying to figure it out. This is the brothel. And so I was like, how do you know it's a brothel? And the guy that was with us said, you'll see. And I was like, okay.
Still open?
Whoa, yeah, whatever. And so we walk in, and imagine, this is a whole episode, dude. Long story short, it was very clear it was a brothel. We can talk about that later. But what it did for me, what visiting that town did for me, is it made me realize that the culture, we think today, oh man, the culture's so awful. We're nothing. We got nothing. The culture was so vile back then. And so when I think of Sunday school flannel graphs of Bible stories, and oh, look, there he is with his coat, the many colors, and we're thinking about Bible stories and like, oh, how tame it was. heck no, dude. This was a vile culture. It's a snapshot from 79 AD. So that's 40 years after Christ. It just brought it, I guess, more like 50 years. It just, to me, it made it real. It's like, I'm walking the streets. I'm seeing the engineering. I can imagine myself to be a Roman engineer. How would I solve this problem? They did pretty good.
Huh.
Oh, you know what? In that case, they did better than I would have done. The only difference between me and them is that I have more technology at my disposal. There's been more errors made in engineering between them and me to learn from. That's the difference. It was life-altering, I think, seeing that. And you told me it would be.
Yeah, it is for me. It was when I unwrapped the present, and it has been when I've had the opportunity to go back. I've been lucky enough to get to Italy a handful of times.
I mean, that's
almost all of them have been for work.
Yeah, it's what you do. I mean, you go and you've researched stuff when you go. I know why you go. It was great. You were able to point me in certain places because this is, I don't know. I hope we get to go back, but I don't know that we will.
It's weird to think that way, man.
What?
I've just started doing that too, though. I never, ever, ever, even 5 years ago, would have said as I leave a place, well, that could be the last time I ever see this. Maybe look back one more time, man. Maybe just take it in. Not through a camera. Look at it, because you bet you're not coming back. And that is a function of math.
Well, I mean,
but
I think
it
that's
is
a fatalistic approach.
It's not fatalistic. Okay, it could be. Somebody could say that because they're like, I'm getting old and I'm going to die. I don't feel that way. I'm saying that with a lot of these places I'm seeing because it was really meaningful. And I really enjoyed meeting you. Little town on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica at the very end of the road where only a couple hundred people live. I really enjoyed meeting you. This was wonderful. But this world is so very big, and I really want to go see other parts of it. So I don't know that I'll be coming back this way again, so I should retain it. For me, it isn't super fatalistic. It's more optimistic. For all the beauty I've seen, there's still so many more presents to unwrap. But I am starting to think that way a little bit. Like, I kind of want to get after this other place.
Well, the big reason I was thinking that way is it was such a financial stroke to do it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just something you're like, oh, we're going to go do this. No, you got to like mean it.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, so this is now a priority for us. And I got to say it was worth it for the investment in our marriage. I mean, I got to say it was. I can think of a moment when I was walking down the street in this city. I think it's called Cinque Terre, or the five cities or whatever.
Okay, that's kind of up north in the armpit. Sounds negative, but sort of the northwest armpit of the boot. Like more over on the Pisa side is Cinque Terre. Did you get over there after Pisa?
I don't know the order of what we did things. I just remember walking down the street with a little paper bowl that had bow tie pasta and like very light tomato sauce. And I was like, man, I'm hungry. So I walk in this little place. I was like, hey, I need, what do you have to eat? They're like, we've got this to go. I was like, yes. And so I'm eating it with my little wooden spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate the way it feels in my mouth.
I do too.
Yeah, and then just walking down the street, and Tara went and got something else, and we're like, hey, we're going to meet down at the port. You go get some food, I get some food, and we'll just like explore a little bit and see what, and yeah, I just remember that moment where the sun is setting over the water to the west, and we both got our little pasta, and we're sitting there, and we're eating it. Then I went and jumped off the cliffs. That was pretty cool.
Uninjured?
Uninjured.
Well done.
Yeah, I bled a little bit because
that's injured.
You what?
So that's the opposite of what you said.
I mean, I didn't get like maimed or anything.
Well,
but
I didn't say unmaimed.
It was volcanic rock, and so it was really sharp,
real pointy.
Yeah, it's pointy.
It'll get you.
No, it was great. What do you love about Italy when you're there with? Because you've been there multiple times with Camilla, right?
You know what? This neatly and symmetrically brings us back to the forum conversation.
Okay.
That we were on a little bit ago. I love the layers. For me, Italy's awesome because I love the ancient culture, but I still love the modern culture. I know a lot of people who travel to Italy are pretty hard on the people, the vibe. Rome is kind of dirty. It's true. Rome is kind of dirty in some places. It's clean and lovely in other places. I don't know, it's a major city. What major city is just lovely and clean and beautiful in all of the downtown area at this point in the West? But none. I mean, people live there, they use it, but that's part of the layers, and that's why I like it. It's stacked up upon itself, and we don't even really know how far down it goes. When you were looking at the Colosseum, did you by any chance go up the hill towards St. John's Lateran?
No, I don't know what that means.
So St. John's Lateran is the church compound that's the home church of the Pope. The Pope's home church is not the Vatican or St. Peter's. It is St. John Lateran. They're in Rome, not too far from the Colosseum, a little bit up a hill. They've got the shrine of the Holy Stairs, Santa Scala, right there, the stairs that Constantine's mother, Helena, went and grabbed from Pilate's palace that Jesus ascended for his trial. The story goes that he bled on those stairs, and they made a whole shrine around it in Rome. I mean, it's really pretty cool lore, whether you're into all of that or not. So if you were to walk from the Colosseum up toward Santa Scala, what you would see is one very low dugout area that I think it's the old barracks for the gladiators right there. Does that ring a bell at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's all right. It's like basement of the Colosseum level in terms of layers. But then if you go down the street a little further past the gladiator barracks, the next thing that you get to is the church of San Callisto, maybe? San Sebastiano. Dang it, I don't remember. Whatever. The point is, under that church, there's an old shrine to Mithras, the bull god, that was one of the more obscure Eastern gods that there was a little cult of in Rome that got real hot before the time of Christianity. And so you can go down there and you can see where they did their rituals and like super weird ancient pagan stuff. Well, I don't even know if that's the lowest layer there. I mean, you can back to like Romulus and Remus, stuff of legend kind of level when you go underneath that church and see the shrine to Mithras under there. Then above that, you've got ancient Christianity. Then above that, you've got medieval Christianity. Then above that, you've got Baroque Christianity. Then above that, you've got more modern accoutrements of the church as it exists today. And it's all stacked. Ground level just keeps going up for millennia there.
Yeah.
And at any given place, you just take a core sample and go straight down, and you're going to see the eras of 50 famous names that you've heard of, 20 famous events that you've read about or had in history class. And as you walk through the city, well, there's different amounts of cultural erosion or archaeological erosion in different places. And so you see a cutout wall and that's the history you see right there. It's all stacked up like a neat cross section that you get in a nicely illustrated history textbook or something.
The Forum is where all that stuff happened, right? That's what you're talking about. It's called the Roman Forum, and that's where Senate was and all that, right?
It's where everything was.
Okay.
The Forum is just the downtown of downtown areas.
So I remember being on the far end of that, opposite the Colosseum,
okay,
and seeing a column. There's a few columns that are still standing, and behind me there was a wall, and there was a brick facade on the wall, and behind that brick there was concrete. The wall was filled with concrete, and an older wall that had broken up that they just threw in with the concrete as backfill for the wall.
Huh.
The one thing I wanted to do as an engineer, because we've done a lot of concrete stuff in the past at my old job, I wanted to take my fingernail and I wanted to scratch it and feel the bonding of, because I always heard about Roman concrete.
Yeah, sure.
And I couldn't do it because if everybody did that there, I mean, that's thousands of years. Like, how many tourists went through that way? And if every tourist did that,
the Kantian ethical mean.
I was a good little boy and I didn't do it, but I really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. So there's a column behind me, there's a brick wall. That brick was made by somebody, but inside that was concrete, and inside that concrete were more bricks. And so that's how many thousands of years am I looking at right there of human hands touching this aggregate and this stone? Did it quit?
Does it feel like that's not recording right now? I think we just discovered that the audio quit running. So I guess we're just switching to the backup mics.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right, now we're on the backup mics.
I don't know when that happened. I guess we're fixing to find out.
Yeah.
The Forum to me is a metaphor for what I love about it.
Yeah.
Because you walk down, I mean, you get the Arch of Constantine and Titus. Those are, I mean, the distance time-wise between Constantine and Titus is like the distance time-wise between George Washington and now. And maybe it's a little less than that, but it's close. I mean, Titus is 70s AD. I mean, his arch commemorates the conquest of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. The Arch of Constantine, it celebrates the victory at Milvian Bridge, which is in the early 300s AD. So to somebody just walking through there, I mean, you're like, hey, there's an arch. It looks like some old Roman stuff on there. That guy's got like a wreath or something. There's a sword guy. Yeah, great. That looks Roman. And you walk a few hundred yards. You're like, oh, there's another one that looks Roman. Look at that one right there. And you walk a few hundred more yards, and there's the Arch of Septimus Severus. They're as far apart as our country is from its founding. And yet it's all just stacked up in that one valley between three of the founding hills of Rome, where just naturally all the traffic sort of got funneled. This was the natural place to come out of the neighborhoods and the little sub-communities that made up Rome from its ancient 7 hills and assemble in this valley. There's water down there. It's a good place to do business, to have the markets. Politics ended up happening there. It became the most coveted, valuable property, and it was across the millennia. It's like nowhere else to have all that history visible at once. It's like with CGI, you could make a time lapse of Paris or London or something, and you could see stuff from thousands of years all at once, like kind of, semi-opaque. Can you picture that?
Mm-hmm.
Except there, I mean, you're seeing it all at once.
There were 2 things in particular in Rome that stood out to me, like 2 small things, not small things, but anyway, when I put my body physically in that place, I was just walking down a side street towards the Spanish Steps.
Yeah.
And I saw a manhole cover, and it said SPQR.
Okay, what do you make of that?
And I was like, that's rad. That's cool. Because that was the old, what does it mean in Latin? I'm sure you know
More
it.
or less the Senate and people of Rome.
How do you say it in Latin? Do you know?
Don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I could have answered that question correctly at some point in my life, like after I just got done reading it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so SPQR, which is, that was like USA,
Yeah.
that was the equivalent of, and it was just right there on a manhole cover, a modern manhole cover. I was like, that's pretty cool.
It's sort of a flex, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So there was that. I thought that was really neat. The other thing I thought was very interesting was standing in the center of the Colosseum and looking around and thinking about all the football games I've ever gone to, and then just thinking, man, just people from all over funneled in here and they got a ticket to sit down. Granted, they're watching somebody die. It was crazy. You see it and you're like, oh yeah, old Colosseum. That's interesting. But when you're standing in the arena, the sand,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking around, you're like, somebody stood where I am right now, and they had very, very different thoughts than what I'm thinking right now. But they were a person. And they were scared, and they were, or whatever, they were trying to rouse the crowd, or whatever it was they were feeling. It was a very visceral memory, just being there and seeing that. And it's not something you get by looking at pictures. I've seen the Colosseum on however many, like, travel ads, or Discovery card works for you, and
Sure.
they're like, people are running by the Colosseum or whatever. No, it's not a thing to put on a advertisement.
Because it's sobering.
Yeah. When you're there, you're thinking, and they're telling you about all the stuff. Oh yeah, this is where they would bring the animals up, and you're like, what? It's just a thing. And you look over to the side, and there's some of these steps are still there. Not steps. The seats are still there, and they have the names of people carved into them. They were season ticket holders, or
How
like
about
this.
that?
You're like, this is wild.
It's a lot of watching people die.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
to know that existed, and then there was this whole period of time where people just lived in the Colosseum because the economy was wrecked, after after the collapse of Rome.
Yeah, it was a camp.
Yeah. It's just a strange, strange thing. I mean, I guess I would say we're having problems with our audio. We should probably address that here, but I don't know. What do you want to do?
It's working. I mean, my thing's recording. Is your thing recording?
Yeah, I think it's recording.
We're just on backup audio. Whatever.
Yeah,
People
okay.
understand.
Thank you for encouraging me to do that, and for answering all of our travel questions. So we were reaching out and asking all that.
Yeah,
But man, it was really interesting, and I think it was special. It makes me want to go read more and go back with more mastery. But again, it's quite the stroke to go there.
This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by the patrons. And a while back, Allison, who helps us out with the Patreon stuff and some email stuff as well, she's great and completely gets it. She reached out to some patrons. It was like, hey, if you felt like it, we would love to have you record something. Just record a basic message, who you are, maybe how long you've been listening or whatever, and why you choose to support the program. And then we might just put that in an episode. And so I think we have one that came in this time around. Who is it? What do we got?
Yeah, this is Libby. Let me go ahead and click on this thing and fire it up. Let's see what Libby has to say.
Great.
Hi, this is Libby from Washington State. I have been listening to No Dumb Questions pretty much since they released their first episode. I love how Destin and Matt relate to each other. I enjoy learning new things, and I gotta admit, their discoveries of the recordings of Testicles and Barnacles have been life-changing. I've been supporting them since April of 2018.
That's awesome. Also, Libby has a better audio recording setup than we do, apparently.
Yes. Well, and the primary part of her better audio recording setup is her voice.
I know.
I bet she does something voice-wise professionally.
Yeah.
That sounded like NPR or advertising quality, and now people are going to notice the obvious reduction in quality when it comes back to us. It's kind of embarrassing. I hadn't anticipated that.
Libby, thank you so much for supporting. We're grateful. It's really fun to hear from people why they support, and I don't know. It's fun to know that these silly little conversations we have are actually positive for people.
Yeah, indeed. Libby, thank you. Seriously, that was very, very kind of you. And thanks to everybody else as well who supports the program at patreon.com/nodumbquestions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, let's get back at it.
You asked me at the beginning, you said, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do? I guess I'll ask you first.
For maximum romance?
Yeah, and when you tell me, you know a lot of things. So tell me in a way that someone who's never been would understand. I'll go first.
Okay, you go for it. I have a thought, but you go for it.
Yeah. I would say Venice was awesome. Venice was interesting. It's a city that has waterways for streets.
Yeah.
It's just very, very interesting. And I had the best piece of pizza in my entire life in Venice. And I will chase that piece of pizza until I die.
Fair enough.
We went over towards the east, or no, not the east, the west coast. Something about seeing the sunset over the water was really, really cool. Pompei is not romantic, but it did change my perspective on life. Rome was cool. I felt like it was a city of high crime.
Yes, my family and I feel that way too.
So I wouldn't say Rome was romantic, which is an odd saying.
Really? You didn't feel romance stuff in Rome? Because it's literally right there in the name, Doug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Trevi Fountain was awesome. Going into the Pantheon. Holy cow! Seeing the art at the oh gosh, tell me what am I trying to say?
Vatican Museum.
The Vatican Museum. Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one thing that I remember more than anything else. We're driving from point A to point B through Tuscany. Driving in Italy is very, very difficult. So I had a stick shift Fiat.
Awesome.
And Tara, every time we come up on a really weird intersection and, it's clear we're about to have a wreck and I navigate it safely, she'll reach over and pat me on the arm and say, "You're doing great." Meaning,
awesome.
Hey, we didn't die. Good job. But I remember we were told not to stop near Naples because of the crime, but we were out of gas and we had to stop near Naples and we were hungry. And we get on the GPS and we're like, well, it looks like there's a gas station restaurant here.
Those are the best kind.
Yeah.
That's what you want when you go to Italy.
So it was a Sunday and we went and there was this gas station. I walked in and in my broken Italian, I said, "Excuse me, do you have a table?" I mean, it's just for two. And they said, "Yeah, we do. Today is seafood. We're eating seafood today." And I was like, "Sounds great. Table for two." So we went and we sat down. Tara went and washed her hands. And when she came back, they had served us pasta with everything seafood. You know, like when you picture a fisherman's net and you got like the big fish or like the shrimp or anything like that. And then you have the other stuff in there.
You mean like tires and boots?
Yeah. That's the stuff that was in the bowl. It was a lot of mussels and there was some clams. And then there was an entire family of octopus.
Oh.
Little bitty octopus. They had a little head. Some of them had 5 legs instead of 8. I don't know.
Still moving around?
No, they were dead.
Is that a quintupus?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. But Tara and I were sitting there at this gas station, and there was a birthday party happening behind us, and there was a few guys smoking to our right, yelling at the TV over the soccer game that was happening. And that is not what you think of when you think of romance in Italy, but it was. It was because we were so out of place and we were so uncomfortable, but we were there eating octopus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you know where I don't think you get that experience? On the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like going to Yellowstone the wrong time of year. Yeah, it's beautiful. I think Yellowstone is romantic. I think the wild is romantic. But if you go to Yellowstone the wrong time of year, it's a traffic jam with the occasional bison. Would you like to sit in a traffic jam with the occasional bison for the next 9 hours? Sweet. Go to Yellowstone the wrong time of year. Do you want to see things that would otherwise be pretty but are instead incredibly frustrating? Go to one of these coastal locations that are just a traffic jam in Italy and just sit there. But if you want to go and do something that's just downright weird, get off the plane at the airport in Rome and ask the first Roman-looking person you can find, "Scusi, dove il ristorante della stazione di gasolina?" They're going to look at you weird, but you're going to have memories.
Yeah.
I mean, no one does that.
No
one is looking for the stupid gas station restaurant in crime-riddled Naples. But that's why it's rad. We went and we're looking at Nero's gardens. They're not really fleshed out, but that's where Nero, after the fire, he blamed Christians for it. He took poles, and he didn't do it himself. He probably had his guys do it and ran them up people's butts so that they would just sit up there and
impaled them.
Yeah, he impaled them. So you slowly slide down the thing, dipped him in pitch, used him to light his gardens. One of the most savage abuses of power in the history of the West. And it happened in these gardens. I'm standing over there. I just want to go here in the evening and imagine what it would be like to be in these gardens in their prime in Nero's golden house, but lit by people who nearly 2,000 years ago would say they believe the same stuff I believe today. I just wanted to think about that. And last time I was there, I was thinking about that. Some sketchy guys came and started lurking. Kind of is like, what's the movie with Will Smith in New York with the vampire? I Am Legend. It was like I Am Legend. Like as the shadows crept, these guys would creep, and we were still in the light. And I'm watching, and the kids are just having fun and taking pictures in front of the Coliseum because that's across the street from Nero's garden. I'm looking at this going, okay, gang, we got to go. Snap. The little circly finger thing, that means we're done. And they know that when I say that, it means I see something you don't, we're leaving immediately. And we left. And nobody ended up doing anything weird, but we were definitely getting skulked upon by people who make a living of looking for unwitting tourists who are a little bit off the beaten path. But it's a great memory. It's family magic that we were there and there was a little bit of risk and we were somewhere that isn't really the kind of thing that you go to as a tourist to think about burning Christians a couple thousand years ago. But we went and it was cool. And then the last time we were there, I've only been there once with my kids. We got up the next morning and I wanted those sugar donuts that they have in Italy. They do these powdered sugar donut things. I can't get them anywhere else, so I got one. I ate it. No meat, no protein, just a donut to open my day. 2 hours later, my hands are shaking. I just had a sugar crash. It was bizarre. And I'm like, we got to go now. Kind of got the sweat going. And we just sprinted to the first open pizza place we could find. I explained in my broken Italian, like, my blood sugar is low. Can I just have something and sit down while my family orders? And the guy was very patient with my garbage Italian and gave me some breadsticks, and I just powered them and down to Coke, and I felt better. And then everybody laughed at my shirt's all sweated out and everything. It's not from exercise. It's from a ridiculous fluke starvation crash as a tourist or whatever. Dude, it's the stuff like that. It really is the go and just be there and do things far more than I got the picture standing in front of the thing that everybody has. And so to answer your question, what makes it romantic? What makes it awesome? It's what you guys did with your gas station quintupus. Like, it's the weird crap. It's the weird stuff that gets you totally out of your element. You're not in control
There's
anymore.
some dude right now, baby. I've been thinking, next year's our 20-year anniversary. Been thinking we need to get some quintupus. She's like, you, Roy!
But she secretly is kind of smiling. Roy.
Oh, you know the way to my heart. That's not an exposed stud.
I'm really glad you went on that trip, and I'm glad you had romantic magic. I really am. I think that's so important. I think it's dumb when people act like they're above it. When they act like they're above the romance and the moment and the ambiance and the music and the light and everything feels different. And I'm here and I'm sharing it with somebody that I love, and this moment will never happen again. Things will never align. To be right here with the stupid things, the beautiful things, the old things, the new things. This moment is ours, and it's something nobody can ever take away from us. And when you are in the moment, you kind of have that just brief awakening. It's like the veil gets pulled back about your reality and your life and love. Like, oh, dang, this is it. Like, this is what I'm here for. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And when you both feel that at the same time, that to me is what I mean by romance. And I've experienced that a few different places, but nowhere has more consistently paid off for that sort of feeling, even if I'm just there for work, than Italy. It's a beautiful place, and I've really savored being there with people I care about. I'm glad you got to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate the recommendation. When you say it that way, it paints some of the moments in a different light for me. Oh gosh, we're going to miss our train at the train station in Pisa. The only way we can get there is if we both hop on this scooter and you drive and I navigate, and we're both on a scooter.
Did this occur?
This happened.
Oh my.
Oh, it was great. And we couldn't walk. Like, the reason it happened is we were supposed to walk back to the, it was just 10 minutes. And, our train's in 12 minutes. We'll be fine. We start walking and the whole street is blocked off to pedestrian traffic. We're like, what? And then we're just like, oh gosh, solve the problem. Scooter now. You have to drive. I have to navigate. Okay. So it was great. Did that. I mean, thinking about her saying, you talked about the lantern swinging from the ceiling that Galileo used to figure out pendulum motion. Yeah, it's over there in that building, because she's a nerd. She was reading stuff, and I was like, what? It's over there. She knew it would freak me out. Mm-hmm. It's there? Yeah, it's there. Can we go? Yeah, we can go. You know what she was doing? She knew what she was doing. Yeah, like those moments. Yeah, when you talk about it that way, it is romantic. There's two things that I'll chase forever.
Okay.
One of them is a piece of pizza that I had in Venice. Mm-hmm. And the other was some lobster linguine, because on the last night, I was like, I want to take you out to dinner on a rooftop restaurant in Rome. And we did that. And it was awesome because we didn't know anything. And the guy comes over, the sommelier, is that what it's called?
I don't know. That sounded like French to me. I don't know.
The guy that tells you how to pair wine with food. He comes over and he's like, oh, hello, good evening. No, that's French. I don't know what I'm doing. And so he's like talking to us.
Just talk with your hands. It'll be believable.
Yeah, and I just turn around and I'm like, here's the deal, bro. We have no idea what we're doing. We have absolutely no clue what you're saying and what we're doing. And he goes, oh, what do you like? I can't get away from the French accent. Just being ignorant with her was beautiful and romantic, and it was great.
I'm really glad you got to go. That sounds like an amazing trip, a great way to spend an anniversary. And I am excited to see what you come up with for the next one.
Yeah. Thank you so much.